Buenas tardes. Good afternoon, everyone. Wonderful. As everyone has taken their seats, with you now, Joaquin Avila Jr., accompanied by Denise Hewlett from MALDEF and Mickey Luna, Vice Mayor of Hollister. Good afternoon. My name is Carlos Ramos, and together with you, it is an honor to be here, together. As we all think, and will continue to think through the afternoon, I will remember the first time I heard the name of you. I wasn't in Monterey County. I was up in San Francisco with CBS Radio. And MALDEF had started the first leadership program. And a few of us, some names you might recall, Manny Ramos, KPIX TV, Tomás Roman, CBS at the time, the names go on. A few of us decided to take this leadership program. Probably for some other reasons. But as we saw what was going on, and we saw the commitment there, through the leadership of Joaquin, that little media group, because everyone went their way, we started a group called Latinos and Communication. There was only 5 of us in television at the time, in the general market. So Joaquin has touched all of our lives, one way or another. This might be unusual, but you know what? That deserves a round of applause. No. That deserves a standing ovation. Thank you. You may be seated. Councilmember Rebecca Garcia was born and raised in Watsonville. She's been involved in her community as an advocate for social justice and education, housing, and healthcare for over 35 years. Rebecca has had the opportunity to work closely with Joaquin during the lawsuit against the city of Watsonville. She now serves on the Watsonville City Council for District 5. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Rebecca Garcia.
Good afternoon. I am so honored to be able to welcome you and thank you for attending this special memorial for our beloved Joaquin Avila. For all of us who knew Joaquin, we know that he was a special person, not only as an attorney, but also as a friend and a comrade. I'm pleased to say that here from the city, we have several of our representatives who are wanting to celebrate his life. I'd like to begin by introducing Mayor Lowell Hurst, who was actually first elected in 1989 under the first single-member district election. We also have with us Councilmember Trina Kaufman Gomez. And we have with us also past Councilmember and Mayor Antonio Rivas. This year in Watsonville, we're celebrating our 150th birthday. We are acknowledging the wonderful history that we have experienced in the past 150 years. Well, Joaquin is part of our history. Watsonville made history by being the first city in the United States to win the lawsuit under the Voting Rights Act of 1965 to change our racially polarized at-large election to single-member district elections. I met and began working with Joaquin soon after he filed the original lawsuit in 1985. I was a member of the League of United Latin American Citizens, LULAC. A few months after the lawsuit filing, LULAC became friends of the court, and we fought hand in hand with Joaquin. We won the lawsuit in 1989, and that following year, LULAC went before the Pajarvella Unified School District. We went before the Cabrillo College Governing Board, and then we also went to the Board of Supervisors. We said to them, change to single-member district elections or we'll sue you. Guess what? They changed. At that time, I did not know I would become a product of that decision. In 1992, I ran for Cabrillo College Governing Board, and it was the first district election held by Cabrillo. Watsonville had the most Hispano-Latino residents in the jurisdiction of Cabrillo College. I ran unopposed and became the first Latino to serve on the governing board for Cabrillo. And actually, I was the only Latino in Cabrillo College for 20 years. I now am in my 4th year on the Watsonville City Council. I am the 3rd Chicana Latina elected to the council. And I have the privilege of being the first and only Chicana to have held 2 elected positions in Santa Cruz County, Cabrillo College Governing Board and Watsonville City Council. And of course, this is thanks to Joaquin. During the lawsuit, every time Joaquin would come into town, a group of us from LULAC would get together with him at the Mansion House. I learned 2 things from Joaquin during those meetings. I saw a man who really thought out of the box. Joaquin knew he had to outthink, out-analyze, out-strategize, and outspeak in the court system so he could win the lawsuit. I learned that we have to be intelligent fighters. As you can imagine, those that met with him were frustrated and angry with the city council because they would continue to debate us and fight us and would not support us. Joaquin would always say, be patient. Be patient. So thanks to Joaquin, we fought intelligently, and we were patient, and we won. Today you will hear many of his colleagues, friends, and family. Each of them will honor this man who truly is a hero in the history of the Chicano-Latino journey. I welcome you.
Our next speaker honoring the memory of Joaquin Avila, Simon Salinas, a member of the California State Assembly District 28 from 2000 to 2006. His district included all of Salinas and parts of Watsonville. Before going to the Assembly, Simon was a Monterey County supervisor, a Salinas City Council member, a community college instructor, and an elementary school teacher. Now that's important. After his term in the Assembly in 2006, Simon returned to Monterey County and was elected to the Monterey County Board of Supervisors in 2006, representing District 3. With you, Supervisor Simon Salinas.
Thank you, Carlos. And first of all, my condolences to the Avila family. And thank you, Mickey, for inviting me here to also share a few words in terms of what Joaquin meant to me and also to so many others throughout the country. Like Rebecca, I met Joaquin back in 1988 when the late Jesse Sanchez convened a couple of attorneys, community activists, teachers to come and hear Joaquin at his time. And this was post the Gomez v. Watsonville case. So we walked in there and there was this person that was there. And in his gentle, quiet, humble way, he explained to us the journey that we were about to begin. It soon got to the point of asking for plaintiffs. He needed sympathetic plaintiffs, he said, because this case might have to go all the way to the Supreme Court. And Joaquin was a fighter. He knew he might have to take it all that way, even if it was post Gomez v. Watsonville. He knew that those in power would not be willing to settle quietly sometimes. So Fernando, a social worker, Fernando Armenta, a social worker, Marta Granados, a small businesswoman, and me. And I asked Joaquin, why me? And he explained, Simon, as an elementary school teacher, you know the impact of not having representation in the Salinas City Council. You teach those kids, and you see what they have to deal with in the East Side and El South. The lack of resources for our community was obvious, and certainly the impact on my students was blatant. He explained, as Rebecca was saying, polarized voting, the Voting Rights Act, and the need to shake up the at-large electoral system, and to emphasize that Chicanos communities had the right to elect candidates of their choice. The city agreed to an election to change the system. They didn't agree on their own. They didn't want to change it on their own. We asked, save the city some money that could better go to meeting the needs of the community. They wouldn't do it, but they did say, have an election. And if the voters in Salinas agree with you, then we will abide by that. And so Joaquin said, whatever you have to lose, give it a shot, because he was ready. He had the documents ready to go to court. So December 6, 1988, by a 106-vote margin, it changed the political history of the community of Salinas, and we went to districts on that evening, December 6. So Joaquin would go on not only to change the Salinas City Council and the system, the electoral system, but he would continue on the court system. He would continue on the board of supervisors, which I would meet with him again. And then we would also go to the state, where I would again meet him up there and work on the California Voting Rights Act. And what happened in that election is also instrumental, because we had the highest turnout. Because we told the voters, if you believe in something, and we're telling you this is a good way. Joaquin has taught us about the importance of the Voting Rights Act. We can be angry, and we can be frustrated, and we can yell and scream, but this is a way to start institutionalizing change. He, like Willie Velasquez of the Southwest Voter Registration Project, knew that Chicanos, Latinos would participate in elections if they had an electoral system and process that they could believe in. By empowering communities and electing Chicanos to sit at the table, Joaquin visualized the benefits and greater good that would follow to our barrios and to our neighborhoods. And what do we have today? A Natividad Medical Center, a brand new public hospital, one of the few in California that is second to none, delivering services to the poor, to the indigent, to the uninsured, and to the undocumented. Housing for working families, 1 million driver's license for undocumented folks that now can do that because of Alejo's work, who came here from the Watsonville area. You have everything: potholes, educational opportunities, traffic being addressed, all the concerns addressed by elected boards that are more diverse and reflective of the community they serve, not only here in Monterey County, Santa Cruz, but throughout California and the Southwest and beyond. This has happened because of Joaquin. Joaquin, you were truly our inspiration. You planted the seeds and gave us hope. Just like when I met Cesar Chavez when I was a 13-year-old kid, and he gave us hope with my farm worker parents. You inspired us to continuar la lucha para el mejoramiento de nuestras comunidades. Gracias, Joaquin. To the family, know that Joaquin gave hope to many activists that were frustrated by entrenched political systems. He helped us believe in ourselves and in our communities, and empowered our communities. He taught us something worthwhile, taught us about his vision for a better, fair, participatory democracy. In the process, he made those he met feel appreciated and improve the lives of many. His name and legacy will live on for generations. Mil gracias, Joaquin, nuestro héroe, nuestro general, a true voting rights gladiators. En paz descanses, hermano.
Thank you, Simon. We now have a list of special guests. We will ask them to limit their times to an hour. No.
That's not long enough.
5 minutes. Our first speaker, Thomas Sites, a nationally recognized civil rights attorney, returned to MALDEF as president and general counsel. He was previously counsel to the Los Angeles mayor, Antonio Villaraigosa. Science served on the 4-person executive team to the mayor, where he provided legal and policy advice on major issues and initiatives. During his four-year tenure with the city of Los Angeles, Thomas helped to lead the legislative effort to change the governance of the LA Unified School District, the effect of which has been to take the city and provided una cachetada. It says here, a slap. In order to secure equality education for all students in Los Angeles. He also served as the head liaison on labor negotiations with a goal of addressing serious financial challenges and partnerships with the city speaker. Thomas was selected as one of Hispanic Business Magazine's 100 Top Influentials in October 2009. The National Hispanic Bar Association presented him with the Whitley Award in 2008. And the awards go on. Thomas was born and raised in Southern California. He graduated summa cum laude from Yale University, and he received his law degree from Yale Law School. Please welcome Thomas Saenz.
I have the great privilege and honor of being the current president and general counsel of MALDEF for the last 9 years. So I begin by thanking the Avila family on behalf of MALDEF for allowing us to take so much of Joaquin's time, because he truly was a Maldefian through and through, serving first as the champion litigator that he was, eventually as president and general counsel, and more recently as our frequent cooperating counsel, including in our most recent victory led by Denise Hewlett against Kern County down the road a bit in California, where Joaquin worked with us to prepare the case that went to trial in December and will result now in the election of the second Latino supervisor, Latino selected supervisor in Kern County. So thank you for all the work that you did. My personal remembrance doesn't have as much to do with MALDEF, surprisingly, even though it is my great privilege to serve as one of his successors. I first met Joaquin 34 years ago when I was 17 years old as a freshman at Yale College. And I met him because we organized a conference about the 1984 elections. And Joaquin was already well known at Yale as one of the first three, all of them admitted in 1966, first three Mexican Americans to attend Yale College. And when I showed up some 17 years later, there were still issues about adequate representation and whether the institution welcomed Latino students. So we understood what it took to be one of those three. And so Joaquin had legendary status then at Yale College for what he did as a 17-year-old, being one of the first three Chicanos at Yale College. And of course, we also knew he did important work for them. But we invited him, and I saw him as this legend, and as the chief organizer of that 1984 elections conference. I took it the privilege of meeting him when he arrived at the campus and escorting him to the room where we had arranged for him to stay. And I was intimidated, of course, to meet this one of the first three, and the president and general counsel of MALDEF. But Joaquin, being Joaquin, immediately established a connection. He was always approachable. He was always, that struck me, and the fact that he was so calm and cool. And I can now tell you, as currently the president and general counsel of MALDEF, how unnatural that had to be. And in 1984, he was president and general counsel of MALDEF, but exuded this calm, this coolness that he then imparted to others. It made me, as the organizer of that conference, feel as though everything was going to go well. And that's how I remember meeting Joaquin. And many years later, when I had the opportunity to be a staff attorney at MALDEF, I would occasionally run into Joaquin at the MALDEF Los Angeles headquarters law library, because he would be there doing his research on the work that he was continuing to do. And what I remember is always having the same approachable, calm conversations with Joaquin. but there was always a creative idea. Every time you met him, he had an idea outside the box, thinking 10 steps ahead to share with you. And that was what was added to that always approachable, calm demeanor. It was a creative idea, and it was true throughout. I remember the last time I was able to spend some time with Joaquin before the stroke. We were in Utah, Salt Lake City. And of course, only Mickey Moon could get both Joaquin and I to go to Salt Lake City to talk to the Lulackers about the issues that they were facing. We were there, and once again, Joaquin came with a creative idea that he needed to impart to me that day. And that's the Joaquin that I remember. Always calm, clearly a warrior for justice, gladiator, pistoletero, but always calm, always approachable to everyone, including a 17-year-old freshman, as I had been when I met him, and always with a new and creative idea to add to the mix. With all of that, I know that his legacy of those ideas and those who are inspired by those ideas will continue for years and years and years to come. We miss him already, but thank you for sharing him with us.
Jose Padilla was born and trained and raised, parents do train him, in the Imperial Valley of parents who came from farm worker families. He attended Stanford University in the early 70s when many Latino students felt that social obligation to give back to the community that had raised him. Jose received his BA from Stanford in 1974. Deciding that he could best serve his community through legal advocacy, Jose attended both law school at UC Berkeley. After graduating, he started what has become a 35-year legal career with California Rural Legal Assistance, CRLA. He was named one of the 100 most influential Hispanics in the United States by Hispanic Magazine, October 2006. The Mexican government awarded him the prestigious Otley Award at the end of 2006. The National Bar Conference for the Hispanic in 2003 for his services to Mexican citizens in the United States. In 2011, Jose's name was submitted to Governor Brown by the California Latino Legislative Caucus as a potential California Supreme Court nominee. With you, please welcome Jose Padilla.
Like Tom, I thank the Avila family for giving me the honor of sharing these words with you, these heartfelt words at this tribute. I have spoken on many occasions, made many presentations, tributes, keynotes. Over these many years as director, but 3 have given me the most honor and humility. Dolores Huerta, the Honorable Cruz Reynoso, when they gave me the tribute at UC Davis, and the introduction that I was asked to give at Stanford University on the occasion of the Ernesto Galarza lecture back in 1997 when I was asked to introduce your father, Joaquin. So I take these few minutes and share with you 2 of the comments that I made that day at Stanford University when I talked about his place as a civil rights warrior and talked about the mural at Stanford University that perhaps maybe even one day still will have your father's image on that wall. So I spoke about 2 things. And first I spoke about the civil rights and the voting rights belligerence that Joaquin represented in the work that he did. Ernesto Galarza, one time in a speech that was commemorated by Antonio Burciaga in a book called Ren Cultura, talked about who Chicanos were. Chicano He is a Chicano because of his posture in which belligerence, a particular quality of social awareness, a distinct kind of romanticism is unmistakable. Unmistakably, Joaquin Avila lived a civil rights belligerence. And he did it to compel the American society that was not disposed to live up to the democratic promises on those monuments in their front yards, and Joaquin made them do it even in their backyards. At the time that I introduced Joaquin, he had already been doing this work for 22 years. He had litigated and he had already led. He had been a MALDEF lawyer for 11 years. He had already been 11 years as a private practitioner, and for 3 of those years, he had been the director of MALDEF, where he had served as president and general counsel like Tom. And Tom was right. Joaquin's vita, describing his cases, ran for 10 pages, where it mentioned more than 50 voting rights cases that he had brought, and in which he had participated. His Texas and California cases challenged just about every kind of map that could have been challenged by entities trying to take away the voice that Joaquin knew he should have. The supervisorial counties, the county commissioner courts, the rural towns, the metropolitan cities, the state legislatures, school, hospital, judicial districts, all of them, he went after. And the named plaintiffs in his cases, they read like a Watsonville telephone directory. Aranda, Armenta, Arriola, Alcaraz, Aldazoro, Cardona, Garza, Martinez, Mendoza, Ramos, Reyes, Terrazas, Trujillo, Trinidad, Silva, Irigoyen, and so on. And of more than the 50 cases he had filed, 1 in Arizona, 27 in Texas, 26 in California. And 50% of those cases while he was in private practice. And that day I talked about Joaquin Avila, our hero, and I talked about the Antonio Burciaga mural. The ethnic heroes, the Chicana heroes whose names become synonymous with social justice, and the incumbent changes that they demand and are demanded in their names, and sometimes attain, all of these heroes share in that task of bringing their brothers and their sisters to a once exclusive table where our hope and our hunger is served. Cesar Chavez, one of those heroes, he told the American unions that farm workers would be organized and sit at that bargaining table. And Joaquin Avila, through his quarter century redistricting litigation in all of these 3 states, in these 3 states, he was telling America and American democracy, Latino communities, wherever they are enfranchised. Their chosen representatives will be seated, will be heard at that same table of American politics as everybody else. When I asked Joaquin about his heroes, he told me his parents. He told me about his uncle Edmundo. And then he said, my heroes are those people who stick their necks out. But Joaquin Avila is the hero. And maybe he's unsung, or maybe he's not sung enough. And that day I said, you know what, Joaquin, I know who the unsung is. That unsung hero is the one that never made it to the table of Burciaga's Last Supper, Chicano Heroes. That mural at Stanford University. But I told Joaquin that day, had our cultural hero, Tony Burciaga, been there that afternoon, this is what he would have said to Joaquin. Este compañero es Joaquin, y nos ha brindado, he has offered us, del mero corazón, that which comes from a bottomless heart, that which gives valor, that which supports the backbone, that which gives nerve to our community. I dare say, I told Joaquin that day, I dare say, Joaquin, that with life and in due time, Tony would have brushed you on that mural wall at Stanford University. Maybe he would not have put you between Che and Cesar Chavez. But maybe he might have brushed you on next to your compadre, Willie Velasquez. But if Tony Burciaga had read your heart, he would have then decided that he would have painted you next to Lalo Magaña, Juan Carlos, or any one of those Stern Hall employees, those workers, on that mural who toil in the daily evolution of our integration. As Burciaga explained, the spirit of the supper of the Chicano heroes was also to serve those heroes in the daily job, like our parents, like our grandparents, who scrubbed floors, wept and fought, so that another could sit at the tables like the ones, Joaquin, that you alone set for us, the Chicano community. It was such a great honor to introduce you, Joaquin, friend, Joaquin Avila, presente.
Thank you, Jose. As every Latino, every Chicano knows in California, La Raza Lawyers of California is something special. It is an independent association of lawyers. It is a powerhouse. Organized in 1977 to support Chicano and Latino lawyers in California. And it continues to serve as a statewide network for local affiliate La Raza lawyer groups. As president of the California La Raza Association, Chris has exemplified what it is of having total commitment to his community. As a professional, but as a dear friend to a whole lot of gente, people, peeps, just as he was to Joaquin. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Chris Arriola. Chris?
First, California La Raza Lawyers was founded by Jules Reynoso, as so many other groups were. And we are constantly questioning what we're doing and why, and it makes me think of Joaquin quite often. But when I first started thinking of Joaquin, I probably didn't know him. I'm certain I didn't know him personally. I probably had heard of him in the newspaper growing up in Southern California. But I remember one time reading something about voting rights in the paper, going to my grandmother and saying, "Grandma, this makes me so mad that they would do this." And my grandma looked at me and said, "Mijo, it's okay to get mad, but go do something about it." And that's what Joaquin did his whole life, is he did something about it. That's what all of you do in this room. And then I went to law school and I wrote a paper about MALDEF, and what I discovered was my paper became about Joaquin and somebody that I wanted to be like, somebody who was going to do something about it. And I said, how do I even come close to somebody like that and figure out what I can do? And what I noticed is we all love to remember the big cases, but the judicial districting cases here were important. They were tiny, small districts and school districts and city councils that eventually added up, not just such as something for people in the community, but for everyone. And I can say, because of Joaquin, I got involved in looking at judicial politics. And 25 years ago, when I got out of law school, only 3% of the judges in California were Latino. And we hit 10% last year. It's dropping a little bit now. And that doesn't sound like enough, because it's not, but it's remarkable in 20 years to go from 3% to 10%. And it's because of voting rights cases like Joaquin. And one of the reasons the courts were consolidated and the municipal courts were eliminated, I firmly believe, was because Joaquin forced them to be fair. He forced fair judicial districts in municipal court elections, and they were combined into county-wide elections. And a Latino didn't win judicial office for almost, 8 years after the consolidation. And only still in about 6 counties have Latinos actually won judicial elections countywide. So that work he did made a big difference and allowed us to advocate for appointments. But I often get frustrated when we're supposed to be happy with only 10% of the judges in the state, or 40% of the population is Latino. And I get frustrated that, is this work really worth it? Is the Raza lawyer still going to be around in the age of Donald Trump? And what can we do? And I stop and I think of Joaquin. Don't get mad. Do something about it. And I leave you with this quote from Cesar Chavez, which always reminds me of Joaquin. And I take it to me as a prayer. When we are really honest with ourselves, we must admit that our lives are all that really belong to us. So it is how we use our lives that determines what kind of men we are. It is my deepest belief that only by giving life do we find life. That the truest act of courage and the strongest act of manliness is to sacrifice ourselves for others in a totally non-violent struggle for justice. To be a man is to suffer for others. God help us be men like Joaquin Avila. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. James Varney Panetta. That's Jimmy to us. It says in several bios, he's an American politician from the state of California. He is a member of the United States House of Representatives for California, its 20th congressional district. He is the son of Leon Panetta, who represented the Monterey area in Congress for 16 years, before holding such jobs as White House Chief of Staff, and Secretary of Defense. Jimmy graduated from Carmel High School in Carmel, California. He then attended Monterey Peninsula College and the University of California, Davis, graduating with a bachelor's degree in international relations. He then interned at the U.S. Department of State. He received his law degree from Santa Clara University School of Law. He joined the United States Navy Reserve as an intelligence officer and completed a tour of duty in the war in Afghanistan in 2006. Worked in the Alameda County, California as a prosecutor, as a deputy district attorney for the district attorney's office in Monterey County, and now our assembly member, our U.S. congressman. My bad. Ladies and gentlemen, with you, Jimmy Panetta.
Thank you, Carlos. Appreciate that. Joaquin, my condolences, and thank you for this opportunity to be a part of such a wonderful event. I talked to Joaquin earlier when I came in, first met him, and I asked him, I said, where did you grow up? And he said, well, my dad was pretty busy when I was younger, and I said, I know what you mean. My condolences, and thank you. Mickey, thank you for having me be a part of this. Fellow electeds, community members, friends of Joaquin Avila Sr. It is an absolute honor to be here as we recognize Joaquin Avila, and more importantly, what he did throughout his life. In looking at Joaquin, his life, and what he did, but also what people did as a result of what Joaquin did. To me, that is what our country is about. That is why people continue to want to come to this country. That desire, that dream is something that I am familiar with. My grandfather came here in 1921 as an Italian immigrant on a ship with over 2,000 people where he was stuck in steerage with 1,800 of them. He had $5 in his pocket, and his occupation, as listed on that ledger, was as a peasant. He took a risk, and I'm sure it wasn't easy to leave the known to come to the unknown, to leave his family and friends and come to a place where people just didn't know you. Some of them, many of them at that time, didn't like him. At that time, Italians were not only not looked upon kindly, they were compared to primates, to savages, and they were said to commit more violent crimes than other Northern European immigrants. That view was not only held by just a small group of people, it was actually held by our government. And that fact was emboldened and it was encouraged when Congress passed and the President signed the Immigration Act of 1924, which specifically targeted Italians and cut their immigration by 90%. Today, I often wonder, what would have happened if my grandfather would have waited a few years? What would have happened to his dream? And clearly, I reflect how lucky I am that I had somebody in my life that took that risk to come here and fought to stay here, despite the negative forces around him, so that he could live that American dream and that his kids and grandkids could live the reality of that dream. Today, as we gather to reflect on the life of Joaquin Avila, we recognize him for being a part of that never-ending fight in this country to ensure that people are not only allowed to come here, not only allowed to live here, but he ensured that they too can be a part of here. Joaquin Avila understood that we are a nation of we the people. He knew that our government functions best when it's representative, when it's reflective, but also when the wide range of its constituents are allowed to fulfill the relationship with this democracy. He believed that the best way to do that is through the ballot box. And that is why he consistently and constantly fought to cut through the barriers that kept minorities away from voting. As you've heard, and as we know well, he was smart, he was patient, and boy, was he aggressive. But he knew you can't run away from policies. You can't just resist politics. He knew that we must continue to fight the prejudice that has occurred throughout the history of this great nation. And he knew that that fight just can't happen in the streets. It clearly couldn't just happen in the cities. And as we're seeing today, it cannot just happen in Congress. He knew that he had to take it to the courts. He believed in our systems, in our system of checks and balances. His courtroom battles, clearly they are legendary. More than 70 voting rights cases that spurred change not only in Watsonville, in Salinas, in California, in Texas, in Mississippi, but throughout this nation, and yes, throughout our democracy. Joaquin believed that you can rely on the foundational laws that preserve our fundamental rights. Joaquin understood that although our rights are self-evident, they are not self-executing. Our grandparents, some of your parents, some of you took that risk to come here, to obtain the rights that this country gives us. That is why we continue to recommit ourselves to giving back to our communities and our country that has given us so much. Today, we recognize Joaquin Avila. We recognize how he has helped people, how he has helped people exercise their rights. And so today, let us not just show up here to honor Joaquin. Let us recommit ourselves to honor his legacy. And we do that by continuing every day here forward to participate in our community, in our country, and you bet in our nation that is of, by, and for we the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Ana Caballero was elected in November 2016 to the California State Assembly, representing the 30th Assembly District. Prior to this, Ana served with Governor Brown's cabinet. Ana has a 30-year legacy of public service to her community. She received her undergraduate degree from UC San Diego and her law degree from UCLA. After graduating law school, she moved to Salinas, California to provide legal services to farm workers, being the founder also of Partners for Peace in Salinas. She has received numerous accolades and awards. Ana is noted for becoming the first female mayor of the city of Salinas in 1998. That's a big deal. Ana was first elected to the State Assembly in 2008, and she continues to focus on meeting the needs of local residents and the community at large as our current 30th Assembly member. With you, Ana Caballero.
First, let me say thank you very much to the Avila family for the honor of being here today as we celebrate the life of a great warrior. It's truly an honor and a privilege. And as I look around the room, I realize, what a bunch of troublemakers. Honest to goodness. I mean, seriously, what a bunch of troublemakers. And you know what? I'm proud to be among you. And I truly mean that because I got to Salinas and right out of law school in 1979. And my plan had been to stay for a couple of years and represent farm workers and then go back to Southern California because I wasn't from rural California. And I fell in love with the community. And there's so much to love in this area. The people are wonderful, the challenges, and there's so much opportunity. But at the time, everything was polarized. And you looked around and you saw no Latinos on the school boards, no Latinos on the city council, no Latinos on the board of supervisors. And yet there were talented people in the community, and you wondered, why is that the case? And that's when Joaquin Avila was invited to come and talk to us about why it was happening, and to look at data, and to look at trends. And his research was phenomenal because he gave us the basis to understand not just political power, but also how you keep it from a community. And Simon, you did a terrific job talking about what was going on in Salinas, and part of the challenge was to try to make change in the city that would be accepted and that was going to actually have an impact on our community in a positive way. And whenever you start talking about, and more so then, whenever you talked about Latino this or Latino that, the question became, well, why are you only worried about Latinos, right? Why do Latinos always have to hang around together, right? And part of it is because, part of it is because we're a lot of fun. but the other part of it is because I know what it's like to walk into a room of 300 or 400 people and have no one say hello to me as a woman or as a Latina. And so you tend to look for people that look like you and to seek out friends. And so when Simon ran right after redistricting vote and ran as the first Latino, it was an exciting time, but he was one on a council of 7. And within 2 years, I ran and I believe it was Ocampo ran, and there were 3 out of 4. And within 2 more years, which means 4 years from the first election of Simon, we had a majority on the council. So what Joaquin was able to help us do is to create a peaceful revolution that fundamentally changed not only the complexion of the people that were on the council, but the priorities that those people had for investing in the community. And you really need to realize that it was a peaceful revolution because we were able to take over and have people believe that there was legitimacy in our election and that it had been done fair and square, and that we had things to offer the community. And it was for that reason, quite frankly, that I was able to be the first female mayor of the city of Salinas in its 126-year history. We're celebrating 150 years this year. I was just over at the Founders Day. And so you can go hundreds of years and never see any change, and then see it all of a sudden and realize the power of that. And it was because of Joaquin Avila that we were able to achieve that. And so to me, I feel like I will forever stand on his shoulders because he allowed me to be lifted up, to be able to open doors and to make sure that there are resources for our community and the ability to be able to go out and speak in Spanish to our constituents and invite them to come in and have translators at our council meetings and be peace builders where everybody's treated with respect in the council chambers. Those were all changes we made when we got on the council, apart from investing in parks and having after-school programs and preschool programs. You can make fundamental change in the lives of people, and Joaquin understood that, and all of his work was dedicated to making sure that those of us that wanted to take the risk of being involved in politics could do it with someone with the wind at our back and with someone on our side as a champion. So he is a hero in my mind, and he has fundamentally changed California politics for the better, and so may he rest in peace. So before I forget, I have a assembly resolution for the family, and I'll leave it up here so we're not disrupting the ceremony. It is signed by myself and also Ben Wesso, who's the chair of the Latino caucus of the legislature. So thank you very much to the family for allowing me to be here and to present you today.
Thank you, Ana. Mario Obledo passed on August 18th, 2010. However, he's still in our hearts, in our community, and in the halls of every room and court you can imagine within the legal profession. Mario was an American civil rights leader. He was called the godfather of the Latino movement, El Padrino. He's credited with establishing numerous civic institutions and bringing Latino interests into the center of the country's political arena. He also served as California Secretary of Health and Welfare from 1975 to 1982. He was born in San Antonio, Texas. His parents were Mexican immigrants, and he was one of 12 children. He earned a pharmacy degree from the University of Texas at Austin and a law degree from St. Mary's University in San Antonio. For 3 years, he was a Texas Assistant Attorney General. President Bill Clinton presented Obledo with the Presidential Medal of Freedom in 1998. And the list goes on. His life goes on in our hearts. From the Mario G. Obledo Coalition of Hispanic Organizations, please welcome the Executive Director, Mrs. Queda Acala Obledo.
Good afternoon. For those of you that I have not had the pleasure of meeting, my name is Quetzalcoatl Obledo. I am Dr. Obledo's wife and Executive Director to the National Coalition of Hispanic Organizations. I am very honored to represent my husband here today. And I would like to extend my gratitude to Joaquin G and my condolences on behalf of Dr. Obledo and myself and the Marguerite G. Obledo National Coalition of Hispanic Organizations. I can't speak very much because I was the child bride. I was with Mr. Obledo all the time, and I became his office manager. As most of you guys know, Mr. Obledo had diabetes, and I had to make a decision whether to take on my own career or to support him with all his endeavors. And I decided that I wanted to support him because he was a community activist, leader, humanitarian, and I wanted to continue his work. I can speak only in regard to Joaquin. I met Joaquin more personally than his law background. And there's a story that I would like to share. Mr. Obledo was being represented or given an award, a Lifetime Achievement Award in LA. And Mario and I were sitting at the table, and when we turned to the side, we saw Joaquin, Mr. Avila Joaquin. And as he walked in, he came up to me and greeted me, as always, with full respect. And then he went over and shook Mr. Obledo's hand and hugged him. And we turned around and we said, Joaquin, where are you sitting? Come and sit with us. And he said, no. He said, I just came in, and I speak of this story to let people know of Joaquin's loyalty, because I knew him personally more than I knew him in action. And he said, no, I came in, I flew in specifically to shake my mentor's hand. I love Mario, and I respect him with every ounce of my life. And he goes, I'm leaving now, because I have to go back to the airport, like right now. I go, did you not eat? Did you? He goes, no, I have to go now. He was in Seattle. So I speak more on personal, and I know that when we lost Mr. Obledo, he stayed on the phone with me numerous hours, speaking to me about just trying to calm me down. And for that, I will always be grateful to Joaquin. On behalf of Dr. Marguerite G. Avila and myself, we extend our condolences. And Joaquin, we will forever rest in peace. Here's the
Mil gracias. John Arriaga founded and is president of JEA and Associates. He founded JEA and Associates in 1990 and provides full-time government relations and advocacy services to a broad range of clients in both the public and private sectors. His career in government has included extensive work with the California legislature as well as with Congress and federal agencies. In addition, John has over 25 years of involvement in California politics at both the state and local levels. He has participated as an active member with Californians for Better Transportation, the California Railroad Association, the California Chamber of Commerce, the Bay Area Public Affairs Council, and the Institute of Government Advocates, as well as the University of California, Santa Cruz Alumni Association. Ladies and gentlemen, with you, damas y caballeros, con ustedes, John Arriaga.
Carlos, I don't know where you found that bio, that's a little old there. Buenos tardes, good afternoon everyone, and thanks for the opportunity to say a few words here on behalf of Joaquin Avila. I'd like to give my condolences to the family, and again, thank you for the opportunity to say a few words to me. Thank you for inviting me. I personally have known Joaquin since the 1980s. He was a young attorney back then and starting out his career in law. I met him at an event, like many of the events that all of you also attend, these receptions and so forth, and we got to talking. And he started to talk about his legal ambitions regarding voter rights. To make a long story short, that conversation moved me. It moved me to introduce him to the CEO of Southern Pacific Railroad at that time where I was working. Because he was looking for funding for these cases that he was handling. Obviously, they're very costly and take a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of people. We introduced him to those people and many others and so forth to assist with in the funding of these cases. And over the years, Joaquin and I have crossed paths many times. When I was asked speaker today, I asked myself, what did Joaquin Avila mean to me? How do I see this man? And as I thought about it, I could not help but think about people like Cesar Chavez, Martin Luther King, Dolores Huerta, Mario Bella, and others. I then asked myself, what do these people have in common? And the constant theme in all of their lives was that they saw a wrong in their community, and they wanted to make it right. A wrong to make it right. And this became his passion. This became their passion. These individuals I mentioned directed their efforts toward areas such as the civil rights movement, the labor movement, the women's rights movement, children's movement. They all saw an injustice within a community that needed to be addressed, and that became their passion. To utilize time, talent, and services to attempt to correct these injustices and to make them right. For Joaquin, a man who was raised in a predominantly Latino community, who was remarkably smart, attended some of the best schools that this country has to offer, Yale, Harvard Law School, a person who had exceptional legal talent. He utilized these talents to identify an injustice in our voting system, in the way our community elected our leaders. And it was here in Watsonville, in Monterey County, that he challenged our system of voting from at-large elections to district elections through our judicial system. Looking at communities like Salinas and Monterey County, where at-large elections were not producing fair representation to his constituents. Communities that were 50, 60, 80% Latino and had never seen the Latino representation. Joaquin challenged the system. He took the fight from the lower courts all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court and was successful in bringing about landmark decisions which we all are benefiting from today. Through our judicial system, he was able to open the door to district elections. Joaquin brought about an opportunity to have fair and equal representation in our communities. And though this battle is far from over, results can be seen throughout our elected bodies. Our school boards, our city councils, our board of supervisors, and many others. Additionally, this created more opportunities that changed the face of local government. Administrative positions within the government soon begin to reflect the demographics of the community. You begin to see many firsts. The first Latino city manager, the first Latino chief of police, the first Latino director of human resources, and I could go on and on. His efforts also opened the door for the federal and state dollars to start going to your schools, to your parks and businesses in the area that had previously just been disregarded. I can go on and on with the ripple effect that Joaquin's effort have made possible. Joaquin saw a wrong in our community that became his passion to make it right. and I thank him for that. We all owe Joaquin a great deal of gratitude for his contributions to the voter rights movement in this country. God bless you and thank you.
Thank you, John. Cruz Reynoso is a professor of law emeritus and was the inaugural holder of the law school's Bochover and Bird Chair for the study and teaching of freedom and equality. A former Associate Justice of the California Supreme Court, Reynoso is recognized for his leadership in civil rights, immigration, and refugee policy, government reform, and the administration of justice, legal services for the indigent, and education. Cruz served as Vice Chair of the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights, as well as a member of the Select Commission on Immigration and Human Rights. In 2000, President Bill Clinton honored Cruz Reynoso with the Presidential Medal of Freedom, honored with the Hispanic Heritage Foundation's Hispanic Heritage Award in Education, received the UC Davis Medal for the university's highest award, and the American Bar Association's Robert J. Kutik and Spirit of Excellence Award, among many. Cruz has been awarded the National Hispanic Bar Association's highest honor, the Lincoln Juarez Award, named after Abraham Lincoln and Benito Juarez, the presidents of the United States of America and Mexico, contemporaries, both lawyers who fought for injustice. Cruz has established the Cruz and Jeannie Reynoso Scholarship for Legal Access in his name to help students with financial needs. Providing this afternoon a tribute to Joaquin Avila, with you the Honorable Cruz Reynoso, former Justice of the California Supreme Court. Un aplauso.
It's an honor to be here to celebrate the life of Joaquin. And can you all hear me? I have known Joaquin for many years. And I'd like, before speaking about the work that he did, speak just shortly about him as a person. I never knew Joaquin to raise his voice. He always treated everybody gently and gentlemanly. He was simply, besides being a great lawyer, a great human being, dealing individually with each one of us as a fellow human being. So I wanted to emphasize that part of Joaquin, that it's not often mentioned because he did such great work. There's the great work that's first mentioned, and forget perhaps a little bit about who was behind that great work. The New York Times, I think, caught a little bit of who Joaquin is and was when it wrote, this is the New York Times, Joaquin Avila, a lawyer and civil rights advocate who helped level barriers that kept Hispanic Americans from voting, getting jobs and going to school, died March 9 at his home in Shoreland, Washington, near Seattle. He was 69. What I want to add to that short reading of what the New York Times had to say about Joaquin was that Joaquin was indeed an inspiration, I think, and not only, and I want to emphasize, not only to the Latino community, because insofar as the Latino community becomes a more vibrant part of the California community, it is only what should happen in a modern democracy as we have today. So Joaquin, in some ways, simply helped modernize California, it seems to me. And he helped he helped do that, I think, first by being the wonderful individual that he was, so nobody took offense when he appeared and argued for a system of laws that protected everybody. And excuse me. And I think that in Joaquin's life, he still continues to inspire all of us toward the ideals that he had and shared with us. We've seen this many times before, that the fact that a person dies does not mean that the spirit and the work that he was involved in dies with him. And that's the way it is with Joaquin. Indeed, the New York Times story starts off by saying Joaquin Avila dies at 69. And of course he's gone now. But the work and the spirit that he was involved with is present right this minute and will be with us for a long, long time. So for me, who knew Joaquin so well, and again I emphasize the gentle person that he was, gentle as a human being, not as a professional. As a professional, he insisted that right be done rightly. And so to me it's just an honor to be able to be here and share with you just a few minutes of my life, if you will, with Joaquin, and sharing with him the things that he helped make better in this country, this state, and this world. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge. We have a list of remembrance speakers. Our first speaker is the Mayor of Watsonville, California, Mayor Lowell Hurst.
Thank you very much, and condolences to the family, and what a privilege it is for me as an old white guy to be up here at a special day like this. You know, I wasn't always an old white guy, but I was more a white guy. And as such, you know, I have to work twice as hard to gain credibility with my Latino brothers and sisters and my Chicano friends. And so I remember back in the 80s when I was a school teacher, and I was brought along to politics as a school teacher, and I was interested in school politics, and they said, well, you're missing something here because there's something going on in Watsonville that you need to know about. And I was informed about the past practices and the biases that took place and the discrimination that took place. And I wanted to do something about it. And so it was certainly a pleasure to meet Joaquin and to feel that spirit and that fire and that determination and know that there were like minds in the community who wanted to change things. And so it's a great honor for me to be here now as well as back in the 80s when many changes were taking place. And so thank you very much for allowing me to be here, and thank you very much to the voters of Watsonville who continue to return me to office, and know that my heart and Joaquin's beat the same. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With a reading of a statement from State Senator Bill Monning, please, let's welcome Jenny. Jenny Summit.
Good afternoon.
I am so honored to be here and to be able to read the statement from Senator Bill Monning, whom I respect deeply, and also address to the family and to the wonderful work that Joaquin Avila has done for California, for Watsonville, and throughout the United States. I wasn't a resident of Watsonville then, but I definitely learned a lot about him. I had the pleasure of meeting him about 3 years ago when he was here. And I just thank you so much for coming and sharing this time with us in Watsonville. So this came from Senator Bill Monning. It's from the California State Senate, and it was signed on April 12, 2018, adjourned in memory of Joaquin Avila. On behalf of the California State Senate, may I express our deepest sympathy. Senator Bill Monning. And also, he has a statement that I would like to read to you. It's beautiful, it's very touching. Dear friends, Lula, colleagues, and family members of Joaquin Avila, I regret that I am unable to join you today to celebrate the life and achievements of Joaquin Avila. I had the honor of adjourning Thursday's California State Senate session in the memory of Joaquin Avila. During the adjourn in memory testimonial, I was able to highlight some of the many contributions of Joaquin's work as President and General Counsel of MALDEF, and his work as an attorney who won landmark litigation that forever changed the complexion and composition of elected bodies throughout the United States. Among those landmark achievements, of course, were the victories that won district elections in Watsonville and Salinas. I am old enough to remember when, as a young attorney with the United Farm Workers Union, I was aware that the elected city councils in both Watsonville and Salinas were not just predominantly white, they were all white. With the advent of district elections, the majority Latino population in both Watsonville and Salinas began to win seats on the councils and a political voice. I also see today as an opportunity to applaud the many local activists who worked with Joaquin to give life to the litigation by stepping up as plaintiffs, community organizers, and fundraisers. I know that Joaquin was always generous in his acknowledgement of the local activists who were able to translate the legal victories to political victories. Today, many will share and all will celebrate the many other achievements of Joaquin Avila during his tenure leading MALDEF and during his continued work after. I think it's important to draw on Joaquin's leadership, his legal acumen, and his fundamental sense of fairness, equality, and justice to inspire our current and continued efforts to defend against the many attacks against voting rights for all, including those led by the current occupant of the White House. The stakes are high. The future of our communities, state, and nation may be determined for years to come by the regressive policies, including legal opinions that seek to protect class and race advantage in our country. We can enlist the memory and spirit of Joaquin Avila to fight these current challenges and protect and achieve a vision of the true equality for all in our democracy. Thank you to Joaquin's family for your love and support of a compassionate man who sacrificed much to champion the rights of all. Our thoughts and condolences are with you all. Viva Joaquin Avila.
Thank you. For the remainder of the speakers, please keep your comments below 1 minute if possible. Thank you. Our next speaker, Chicano professor at CSMB and a plaintiff against Monterey County and also with Hartnell College. Please welcome David Serena. David.
10 seconds. Well, it's only a pleasure to be around troublemakers. I think all of you here are Chicano warriors, and applause to all of you for all the work that you're doing. I wrote a poem for Joaquin, so I'm going to read this poem. First of all, thank you very much for being here, and condolences to all your family. Ya basta, queremos tierra y libertad, gritaban las hijas de Cuauhtémoc y los soldados de Zapata, con el plan de Ayala en sus manos, peleando y muriendo por sus tierras, con sus hermanas y hermanos. Queremos tierra y libertad, gritaba la gente de Tierra María, la tierra que nos robaron los americanos. Rey López Tijerina decía. El Tratado de Guadalupe Hidalgo fue una pesadilla. ¡Que viva la huelga!, gritaba Emma Teneyuca, la pasionera. She organized a union at 19 years old, the San Antonio Light Tow. Chicano pecan shellers walked out on strike for better wages. Emma went to jail, but was not for sale. And she changed San Antonio for the coming ages. ¡Que viva la huelga! ¡Y ya basta!, gritaban los campesinos en su marcha, con Dolores Huerta y César Chávez, from Deleno to Sacramento, con el plan de Deleno en sus manos, y con el boicot de las uvas, primero ganaron sus primeros contratos. Su voto es su voz, decía la raza de Watsonville, Aztlán. Queremos representación y acción, ese es nuestro plan. Ya estuvo con el gerrymandering y racially polarized voting. Queremos acción legal para retar el sistema de votación. Joaquin Avila, a young, compassionate, and peaceful Chicano from Compton, had two pistolas to challenge the Anglo voting system power. The Voting Rights Act of 1965 and a law degree from Harvard. He moved Chicano political empowerment forward. El pistolero del norte, as Joaquin was called, Waldo Rodriguez y Cruz Gomez, sued the city of Watsonville. It was a revolution, like Zapata, Tijerina, Teneyuca, González, Huertas y Chávez. A non-violent revolution, y con la ley a nuestro lado, racially polarized voting and at-large elections were declared unconstitutional. Joaquin Avila y Raza de Salinas, with the support of Simón Salinas, challenged the city of Salinas, the Monterey County Board of Supervisors, the Superior Court, all local school boards, the community college, and won. Now La Raza was in a position to elect some of their own. Zapata fought to regain the land that had been stolen from them. Tijerina and Alianza fought for the land that had been stolen from them. Campesinos in Deleno worked the land that had been stolen from them. Watsonville was built on the land that had been stolen from them. Joaquin Avila fought to regain control over the land that had been stolen from us. Joaquin is one of us and is all of us, said Rodolfo Corky Gonzalez. Joaquin Avila is all of us and represented all of us. Joaquin Avila, a Chicano, a warrior, a revolucionario, who fought for social change. He belongs in the pantheon with those that died fighting for all of us. Joaquin Avila used education, the courts, and constitutional law to fight for social justice as Zapata, Huerta, Tijerina, Chavez, Gonzalez, and Teneyuca saw. To bring representation and an end to voting discrimination as we all saw. Joaquin Avila fought for all of us. Joaquin Avila will be remembered by all of us. ¡Que viva Joaquin Avila, el pistolero del norte!
The following individuals, please step forward and join us up here. First, Juan Martinez, please step forward. Is Juan here? Okay. That's fine. Dolores Gallegos. Dolores? Okay, she's not here. Ruben Macarena? Okay, Ruben. Elizabeth Cepeda? Lizette Rodriguez? Antonella Packard? Raúl Nava Villa? Por favor. And Alma Martinez. Alma Martinez.
Son las tocayas.
Please stand in line. So we first have Juan.
Tighter, closer together.
These are our remaining speakers because of time. We are running a little bit behind time. We're going to ask them to have their comments within a minute's time. First with you, Juan Martinez. Un aplauso.
My involvement with Joaquin basically started right after the 1972 reapportionment. As a student at Hartnell College, we're all aware of what was happening in LA and the term of gerrymandering. 1974, we became, under the Voting Rights Act, and 75 as well, under the Voting Rights Act. As youth director of the County of Monterey, one of the things that we did was to start registering people. We had over 250 volunteers from Pájaro all the way down to King City. The main objective was to run and organize campaigns at the local level for every school board, every city council, and supervisor, judge's seat, and everything we could find to run. Why? Because we needed to prove that we have polarized voting in Monterey County. We did that, and we did it over and over throughout the 70s. So when you think of names that we all know, they all stand up and make their mark because they stand on the shoulders of the effort that was done by lowrider car clubs, girl clubs, the LULACs, and everybody we could think of in the 70s, okay? So that's where it starts, and it continues to this day. Again, my name is Juan Martinez, and I'm proud to say, yo soy Joaquin.
Founder of Latino Democrats of Central California, and I'm also a candidate for state senate in the Central Valley. I'm here today with two of my wonderful friends, Grace Calderon, Tulare County Fair Board Director, and Jack Gonzalez, a retired vice foreman for Tulare County Democratic Party. I'm sorry, and also the grand jury. You know, it wasn't too long ago that I left my career at the Los Angeles Times, which I had for 20 years, and after that I worked with Edward Roywall prior to that. And when I came back to the Central Valley, we seen how we were underrepresented. And Jack, Grace, and I, we formed the Latino Democrats because we needed to have more injection of Latino community, and we were successful. And so Jack and Grace have done wonderful work. They're right now plaintiffs against the Board of Supervisors of Tulare County so we can have more representations. But they've also worked with Joaquin in pushing legal legislation to move our at-large elections up to by area. And we've had success in a very resistant area. So there's a lot to be thankful for Joaquin. One of the things I want to say is I want to thank him. Thank him for allowing us to be champions for others. Thank him for allowing us to be champions for causes that normally wouldn't be talked about, such as inequality and social justice and underrepresentation. But most importantly, I'm here to say thank you for him for being our champion, to allowing us to have a foundation to build on, and also for us to be able to finally stand up on our own. So thank you, Joaquin, and God bless you.
Thank you to the Avila family. My name is Elizabeth Cepeda Gonzalez. I am from San Benito County. Yet I work in Monterey County, Tri-County, doing immigration work under the United Farm Workers Foundation, and have been in MALDEF for a long time. I had the privilege 3 years ago, August of 2015, to interview Joaquin Avila. And I'm going to read one of, it's hard for me because I'm not too emotional, but it's Joaquin reminds me a lot of my father, who's very humble, and even through hard times, like the ones I'm facing with my family right now, they are always very gentle and they know how to fight. So I pull up the interview, and the shortest video that I had posted to my friends and shared with my friends addressed the following, and I quote Joaquin. Joaquin Avila, voting rights advocate. We of my generation need the future generation to continue the work of the struggle in the area of farm workers, in the area of fighting poverty, in the areas of improving education and improving employment, and also with the issues of voting rights. Only you, the next generation, can take that mantle. So my legacy that I would like to leave, so it's hand over to the torch to the next generation. And never think that you cannot make a difference. One thing that I learned over the past 40 years is that an individual can make a big difference. If they're highly motivated and they have specific goals in mind, that is why I'm asking you to pick up this responsibility and to see it as a sacred duty, to do well and improve our community, because no one else is going to do it. Only you, our next generation. So good luck, and hopefully we can count on you. Thank you. End quote. Thank you, Joaquin.
Hello everyone, my name is Lisa Rodriguez, and I'm currently a law student at the University of San Francisco. This is actually my last year. So thank you to Familia Avila and Nikki for inviting me and for having me here. It's an honor to celebrate the life of Joaquin. As a first generation Latina and as a daughter of farm workers here in Watsonville, and the first in my family to obtain a Juris Doctorate, Joaquin Avila has inspired me to fight for my dreams, especially now that I'm getting ready to take the California bar. When I feel like I can't push through, Joaquin's rebellious lawyering reminds me of why I'm doing this, who I'm doing this for. Joaquin's civil rights movement motivate Latinos like me, motivate us to not to be afraid, to lend your voice to the voiceless, to not be intimidated, get in the way, to ask questions, to stand up, to have a voice, because the future generations depend on us. Together we fight for what is right. We can tackle the challenges of social change and bring about a new beginning that our community, the Latino community, can be proud of, in the honor of Joaquin Avila, who is a role model, who is a mentor to all of us. Thank you.
Buenas tardes. Good afternoon. Ha, Tom, you didn't think I was here when you made that comment about Salt Lake. I am the Utah State Director for LULAC. So, I want to make note of June 3rd of 2011. That's when Mickey Luna hogtied Joaquin Avila Sr. and Tom Symes to come to Salt Lake City. I was LULAC's first state director, and that was my first inaugural meeting. And it was a conversation that I had with Joaquin Sr. And by the way, our condolences for the loss of your dad, Joaquin. And it's a conversation that he had with us. And that inspired us, for us to be able to retake that political power. Because he did say that that is usually ever given willingly. And that's what he did. He took it back. However, no amount of lawsuits or legal action would be, how can I say, but in practice, we have to register and we have to get out to the polls. So, what LULAC Utah has done, and we're one of the most gerrymandered states in the country. And also we have a very lopsided legislature. As of 2014, we said that the majority of Latinos in Utah were actually at the age of 14. Well, it's 2018 now, and guess what? We, as a state, have taken as a mantle what the seed that Joaquin Sr. planted. And that is voter registration, voter education, voter engagement, and here we come. And we have registered thousands of people in Utah. We, in fact, in the 2016 elections, we managed to flip one of those legislative seats and narrow the gap as to how these seats were won. We do not have, even though people of color are 20% of our population, we do not really have that representation. But that is changing because we haven't stopped. We have continued to register, and we continue to register, and now we're having people run for positions in municipal government, in school boards, county, and so that's the legacy. So when you hear that Utah is flipping seats and that we are actually turning the dial to where we can have that representation, know that that is Joaquin Avila's legacy. And all I say is, rest in power, brother, and thank you.
Hello, and first of all, I want to give my condolences to the Avila family. We met Joaquin through my father's. His story came out. We were invited to a LULAC convention in 2004. So that's when we met Joaquin and my father and Joaquin. When they were together, it was like they knew each other for years. I mean, they just hit it off. And I am so proud to be here to be able to represent everybody, our family, and what, you know, the people. And I just want to thank Mickey for giving me the invitation to come here to speak. And Joaquin, we love you, and I just want to tell the family, thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Juan Martinez, and I want to thank, first, condolences to the family. Mickey, thank you. Without you getting on social media, I wouldn't have known what was going on, and it was a chance for me to give something back, a little bit back, prayers and support to Joaquin, so I thank you from the bottom of my heart. I drove up last night. I'm from LA. I don't know a lot of you, but what I do know is what this man has done. So when Mickey asked me to speak the last minute, I had to just put my heart around it and figure out why I'm here. I'm in the arts. I'm in the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences, thanks to Joaquin Avila. I have a professional career as an actor, thanks to Joaquin Avila. I'm a professor, thanks to Joaquin Avila. But there's still a lot of work to be done. I want to say, first of all, it's great to be in a room full of troublemakers. I'm known as a troublemaker in academia, and I'm very, very proud of that. Only 6% of Latino women are on a tenure track and have tenure. A lot of work to be done. In the Academy, Lupe Ontiveros, one of our great actresses, was denied not only admittance into the Academy, but when they did the requiems at the end, she was omitted. And thanks to our political leaders, who again I thank Joaquin Avila, thanks to MALDEF, again Tom Sines, I thank MALDEF and Joaquin Avila, the community got together and broke down the wall of segregation of the Academy. And in 2016, and in the actor category, there were 20 new Latinos, myself included, and I don't forget where that power came from. The power of breaking down the segregation of the Academy, because you have to understand, electronic media is one of the most powerful propaganda tools in history. We have the power as a country. We do determine now the image of the Latino around the world. So when I say I'm an actor, I'm very proud to say that, proud of the Academy, because we have the power to change. We have a long way to go. We have a long way to go, but at least we're in the door. And like Joaquin, you open the door, I'm going to stick my foot in it. So that's what we're trying to do in LA. Keep us in your prayers, your thoughts. Also in the Academy, keep us in our prayers and thoughts. Latinos, we're just trying to move up into the Academy. I teach Joaquin work, I teach Dolores Huerta, UFW, I teach theater, but all of that is in my curriculum because that's about empowering our next generation so they know where their power came from. So I know that we have history on our side, thanks to Joaquin. I know we have demographics on our side, thanks to Joaquin. And I know we have justice on our side, thanks to Joaquin. Que viva Joaquin Avila!
Thank you, Alma. God bless you. Reading a letter from Dean John Trasvina from the University of San Francisco, once again with us, is, where are you? Hi, Lisette Rodriguez from the University of San Francisco Law School. Lisette?
Dear friends and loved ones of Joaquin, I regret that I'm unable to join you in person today to celebrate the life and legacy of your dear friend and leader, Joaquin Avila. I extend my condolences to his family and loved ones, and I admire to Mickey Luna for his untiring dedication and deep friendship with Joaquin. I met Joaquin in 1981 when I was a MALDEF summer intern in Washington, D.C., and was working to save the bilingual provisions of the Voting Rights Act from the attack and repeal by the Congressional Republicans. I looked up to Joaquin not just for his civil rights litigation expertise, but for the time he took to mentor me as an intern and to share his knowledge and expertise. More so than perhaps any attorney I have ever met, Joaquin was generous in sharing credit for work achievements and stubborn when defending our rights. Joaquin always took the time to listen or give advice. In his often quiet way, Joaquin was the most powerful voice for the Latinos, but never presumed to impose his idea of what was best upon the men and women he represented. When it came to redistricting, there was no one smarter, and when it came to representing the aspirations of Latino families, there was no one wiser. When I was appointed as President and General Counsel of MALDEF in 2005, if I could channel the Joaquin way, I knew I was doing something right. As we move forward this day, there was moments of silence, moments of sadness, but the greatest tribute that we can show to Joaquin is not a moment, but a life dedicated to action. Everyone here today and thousands and millions whose lives have been improved by Joaquin's litigation and advocacy of victories must rededicate ourselves to the cause of justice, and I will fight with you. Sincerely, John Trasvina. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisette. We want to recognize un saludo to one of our attendees, the Vice President of the UFW, with us, Laura Parejas. Un saludo. ¿Dónde está? Un aplauso. We're actually running only 5 minutes behind. It went from 15 to 5.
Keep going. Catch up.
It is, without question, my profound and moving a wonderful opportunity to introduce to you the following individual. I've been there before. We've all been there before. First Dad, and then Mom. The next person speaking to you bears a very powerful, wonderful, dynamic name. With you, Joaquin Avila Jr. Joaquin.
On behalf of myself and the Avila family, I want to thank each individual who showed up here, and for those who could not make it. On a personal note, I'm just trying to make this one quick, but there's a lot of people I'm trying to thank. First, I would like to thank Nikki and Benzuna for waiting for me up to 2 a.m. last night on a flight that I didn't get until 4, but I still thank them. I also thank them for the many stories that my father has told me about them, and he had a special place for you, Nikki. He considered you a sister, and I'm thankful for all the work that you have done and what you've helped me do for taking care of my father. On that note, I also want to thank MALDEF and Tom and Denise Hewitt and Barbara Phillips, who I nicknamed the patron Avila Saint, because anytime my father truly needed something, whether it was money for medicine or whatever, she always came through along with many other people. I want to thank LULAC, National Hispanic Bar Association. I'm sorry, there are many other organizations and people I should be thanking, but I just can't think of them right now, and I know we're on a time constraint, so I wanted to share a story real quick about my father. It was appropriate that when this incident happened to me, it was in Seattle because it rained that day, and that's when the Supreme Court had struck down the Civil Rights Act, or pretty much remove the teeth, so to speak, the enforcement of it. And it was raining hard that day, and my father was so depressed. And the first thing he said to me was, "All my life work is gone." And I looked at him and I said, "They can never take away what you've done, the people you've met, the people who you influenced, the people who love you and who you love, and all the work that you've done up to this point, that can never be erased. That is a bell that has been rung, and that's it." I told him what he My father taught me many lessons. I'm still learning them all. But one of them was patience, which I heard throughout. And the other one was perspective. So I gave my father an hour, and I went downstairs, and I thought about what my father would tell me if I had something devastating like that happen to me. So I went back upstairs, and I told him what he would tell me. When something bad happens that you can't deal with at the moment, take some time to grieve, and then you do something about it. And I told him, I said, "You're lucky to still be alive. For those of you who don't know that when my father had a stroke, that stroke should have killed him. His doctors told us we had less than 3 months to get all his family's affairs, to get whoever he wanted to say goodbye, make any phone calls, get everything put in order." I told him, I said, "It wasn't your time to go, and it's not your time to go right now. Fate has chose you to do something. So you take your time, and I'll do whatever I can to help you." And then he looked at me, and he was, I'm trying to paraphrase it right, but he was like, "Who taught you that?" And I said, "Someone who thinks he's great." But it's great because he's my father. And so he had a little smile, and he watched the news, and later on that night, around 3:30 in the morning, he woke me up, and so I came into the room and asked him what he needed, and he goes, "I need a pen and a paper." And I'm still trying to wake up, and I'm like, "For what?" Forgetting what we had talked about earlier. And he's like, "I have an idea how to fix this." And I said, "That's my father." And so I went and I got a pen and a paper, and he wrote, and I asked him if he needed anything. I brought him some water, and he told me what he wanted, how he wanted to fix it. He then contacted Barbara, and His last but not least provision in Mali Matters. My father had a lot of provisions, but she was very special to my father in the end. And she did a lot of work with him, and she worked on a paper with Barbara to address these issues. And that's who my father was. He never gave up on hope, and he never gave up. He believed in people, and he always tried to help people when he could. That's who my father was. And to me, that's his greatest legacy. I cherish all these awards, and I appreciate all the people who are here who continue his fight. It's not just his fight, but our fight. On behalf of the Avila family, again, thank you very much.
Thank you, Joaquin. Before you leave, there are tables in the back. And please take a look, participate, get a form, fill it out, and connect to GoFundMe. It's all explained there. You can participate, not just by your attendance, but also by participating on more things to come that will benefit the legacy and our remembrance of Joaquin Avila. With you, speaking to us of the spirit of gratitude, please welcome the Vice Mayor of the City of Hollister, Mickey Solario Luna. Before Mickey goes up, Dan, could you please come up? We've got to do things in order.
Good afternoon. Thank you for allowing me to be able to be at this podium today, to be able to speak to you really quickly. My name is Daniel Dodge. I actually had the pleasure of working day to day with Joaquin Avila and served as paralegal for many, many years. My schedule on here to read you the obituary, but you can read all the obituaries that you want, because the words are more powerful than everybody else has spoken here and said all those things. I want to thank the family, because many people did not know that these voting rights cases took years to pay, and they as a family, because of us that do this work, we take our families with us, and we cannot do it without our families. And the Avila family has given this gift for all of us to be able to carry on this work by their suffering and hard times going through those challenges. And I thank you, brother. Thank you very much. God bless you. I'll be short in the interest of time. I met Joaquin when I was a cannery worker, and he met Willie Velasquez, came here to the city of Watsonville to speak to many of us about district elections. A light went off in my head. That was, I come from the UFW movement, as many others in the Chicano movement, but this was about Latino political empowerment that we could actually be part of. And because of district elections, I was able to be elected to the city council previously and served as mayor of Watsonville. And I remember Joaquin even told me one time, I must have done something right because Daniel Dodge got to be the mayor of Watsonville. Joaquin dedicated his life to this social change, but he had such a powerful demeanor. But as I said earlier, he was a very quiet man. He could just look at you, and you would know what he was thinking. And while I was a angry young man at the time, Joaquin showed me that there is a different way to fight for what I believe. And I went through many journeys with Joaquin and my family, and many of you in this room. And God bless you all. Kern County, One quick story I'll share in Kern County is I went into Kern County to do some voter research. You have to remember Joaquin did a lot of these cases. There was no internet, no cell phones, fax machines were new, right? There was this thing called email, but we really didn't know what it was about. So I went to Kern County and I was in the election department and they would not allow us the records to be able to go through the voting records. They said, no, you can't. So I called up Joaquin really quick from a payphone and I called him collect. and he told me, I told him, Joaquin, they won't let us in. He said, you just go back down there and you wait until I get a hold of you. I said, all right. And I was going up down to the elevator and some gentleman stepped in and shut the door behind me and told me, I'm an assistant district attorney in Kern County, and I know who you are. You're a goddamn organizer, and Kern County is the last bastion of America. I got all excited, because I knew what we were doing was right. The changes that happened in Kern County, I just wanted to share that moment. And I know Joaquin got more than a few phone calls about me over the course of the years. I was lucky enough to be involved in Monterey County in 4 different lawsuits pertaining to the way we elect hospital boards, the board of supervisors, the way we elect judges. Judges. We had to the Supreme Court of the United States in Monterey County. And those were great times because it altered the political landscape where we could have the first Latino city councilman. We could have the first Latina mayor. We could have the first, because of redistricting, we were able to create a Latino majority assembly district to be able to elect our candidate of choice, Simon Salinas, back then also. These were changes that Joaquin brought about because he had the fortitude to be able to have a vision to go forward. He had a Harvard and a Yale education, and he chose what my wife likes to refer to as poverty law. Voting rights. He had the foresight to see in the future so that the young people that are here today will have the opportunity to be those elected people that will make the change that we so need. He dedicated his life and his family's life to making change happen. Now he not only gave us, when I became the mayor of Watsonville, he called me and I said, Joaquin, you taught me how to fight City Hall. And he said, no, Daniel, I just gave you the keys to City Hall. Which, by the way, the first time I went in there, the alarms didn't go off. I was really surprised. So thank you, everybody, for gathering here together. Thank you for all my elders here today that allow my grandchildren to have a better life. I appreciate that of all of you. Thank you for all my friends that are being here today. I just wanted to thank you, Mickey Luna, for allowing us to gather together like this and be able to express our collective voices. For those of you I might not have mentioned today, I'm truly grateful to have been part of this man's life and to have been part of the change that's happened in our community. Sí se puede. Sí se puede.
Daniel, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Now, with the spirit of gratitude, it's always good to be recognized many times. Vice Mayor of City of Hollister, Mickey Luna.
Thank you, Carlos. And, on behalf of the Joaquin's family, I know that you would be very, very happy to see all the people here today that have gathered. For some of you that may not know, Hollister won the election because of Joaquin Avila also coming to the city council meetings and making sure that city council understood that the Latino population was the majority in our city. It took a while, but Joaquin never left us. And finally, when they decided they was going to go to be on the ballot, Joaquin came back and helped us. And we won. 56% of the people voted for district elections in the city of Hollister. The first Latino elected was the president of LULAC. So, Ken Duran was a very, very good friend of Joaquin. So we have a lot of pictures, big celebration that we had that day, and we all celebrated with Joaquin. But I'm here because Joaquin had asked me to speak and say a few words. For some people that don't know, I think I became the financial controller for Joaquin. We had conversations, of course, politics. We had conversations, district elections. When I was state director of LULAC, I found so many plaintiffs for him all the time. He would call me, and sure enough, we'd go through our membership, and many of them came forward. So, but with Joaquin, I knew the need, and I knew the financial need. Because I think everybody got so excited throughout the state of California on bringing in Joaquin to speak about district elections and electing our Latino leaders. But a lot of people, I think, tend to forget that there's a lot of expenses that go with that. You know, he would, I don't know if you guys know what kind of car he drove, but it was, I think, every time he parked in front of my house, it was a little old Volkswagen, blue one, kind of dented in on the side, you know. He would call me from Bakersfield area. He was coming back to the Fremont office, and he would say, Mickey, can I use your printer? And I go, sure, stop by. He would use my printer, and I always had my computer on. Oh, can I research some work? Go ahead. And then I would say, well, do you want a couple of sandwiches to go? Yeah. So I would make him a couple of sandwiches, and he was on his way. We had a really good relationship where Joaquin says that he considered me a sister, and I think he did. Because you know how sisters can be with brothers? It was different, and I would challenge him at times. And he asked me one day, Mickey, do you come from a big family? I said, I'm the youngest of 12. And he goes, oh, you are? I said, I have 8 brothers. And I think they're the ones that taught me how to fight back. And so he said, oh, well, would you like another one? I go, sure. So Joaquin and I became very, very close, and he shared a lot of personal information with me in regards to some of the costs involved in his troubles. I said, you can't go on like this. You've got to ask for help. And so I figured a way, and we were able to get him some funding. But when he became ill, it became different. He wasn't asking for anything of anybody. And when he came here to Salinas in 2015, in August, I said, I'm going to come back next day. I'm going to sit with you. I'm taking you to breakfast. But you are going to talk to me like a sister. You are going to tell me what you really need, because I need to move forward on this. You can't go on like this. You know that there's funding available if we ask. He goes, I don't want to ask anybody for anything because, you know, I do it from my heart. I go, yeah, you do it from your heart, but you have a household. So that's when I started the GoFundMe. And I just sincerely have to thank each and every one of you that have gone through that GoFundMe, because it was a humongous help to him. While we didn't complete the amount that we were looking for, but it's still active so that the family can finalize the final arrangements and agreements. And so I ask of you today, the GoFundMe is in the back on that side. You can take one of the cut off one of the flyers, or his son is here, you know, if you want to talk to him about that. But we need to do that. But I want to say that also on behalf of his wife Sally and his son Salvador, who's not here, and his daughter Angelique, and his grandchildren, just profound thanks for your continuous help, for your continuous support of Joaquin. I know that that I spoke to him on a Sunday before he passed on Friday. And he spoke to me about a case in Kern County. And he was talking to me, and I wanted to put him on speakerphone because I wanted my husband Vince to hear him, because I thought he was in court. He was really excited about this case. And he mentioned Denise Hewlett. And Denise, where is she? Where is Denise? Stand up, Denise. You know what? She may be a güerita, but she's my sister. Denise and I go back, and you know, she knew the need, I knew the need, and there was other people that we got involved. So Denise, thank you so much for everything that you did for our brother, Joaquin. And I just want to say that thank you for all the speakers today. You all made a difference. I know that Joaquin had a heck of a time getting here on his flights, but he made it. You know, and when I picked him up at the airport, he looked tired, but he said, I need to be there because people that my dad loved and they loved him will be there. And you were here. You were here. For some people that don't know who the gentleman was that spoke, that said he was close to his dad, Raul, will you stand up? Yes. Raul is the grandson of General Francisco Villa. El señor Ernesto Nava Villa became a close friend during the Lula Convention in Concord in 2004. And Joaquin and him really clicked. I mean, Joaquin sat there and he said, can you imagine I'm sitting next to the son of Pancho Villa? And I go, yeah, you guys look like you guys are on the same road here. And he said, I love this. And I know in several videos when Joaquin has spoken, he had said that he got the OTI Award, which was an international award, and he got the Genius Award, so he considered himself the Mexican genius, you know, of Mexico and the United States. And so, I just want to stand here today and just thank you from the bottom of my heart, and I know on behalf of my husband Vince and I, we love Joaquin. We were on our way to Fresno not too long ago when my car phone rang and I picked it up. I said, oh, it's Joaquin Avila. And as we were driving down, you know, his voice was good. He was talking to us, and then he goes, ¿Y para dónde van? I go, well, we're gonna go see family in Fresno. And then, you know where, Joaquin? On the way back, I'm gonna go to the casino. And he goes, oh, you're a numbers person, so you be careful with your pocketbook. And I go, yeah, don't worry, I'm careful. But as he hung up that phone, he said, Mickey and Vince, I love you. I love you. And you know what? That stays with us because we love that man. We did our best to help him. And we will continue to do our best to help Joaquin Jr. and his family. And I hope you stand there with us because Joaquin was so close to us that sometimes when Joaquin would call me up and say, you know what, my dad said this. Do you think so? And I can recall the time the phone rang and I had to laugh and Vince was wondering why. It's because apparently Joaquin wanted to have a hamburger and Joaquin Jr. would not let him. So he said, call Mickey. I bet you she said I can have one. And I said yes. On behalf of the family and profound thanks, we do have some pictures back there, are very special. And if you sign up and if you want to, somebody else will be talking about that. But I want to just encourage you to participate in what is in this room today because it all goes back to the family. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Mickey mentioned someone very important in this room, and she's already received an applause, but it was around 2013-14 in King City, California, where a third of the police department was arrested. And for the first time, at least in our region, a police department actually was closed. When have you heard of a police department closed? It was for about 9 hours that it was closed. And representing MALDEF, once again, she was already introduced, but Denise, please stand up and let us give you a round of applause. Denise Hughes. Denise, will you come forward, please? Denise, please come forward. Denise? Please come forward. Jeez. God bless you. And you know what? Being down there on behalf of Monterey County Leader, we were always trying to grab her. Where is she at? But that spirit will never be forgotten. And because of the connection to MALDEF and Joaquin and all that, we can never forget that. On February 1st, 2014, Sergio Garcia, then 36, became the first undocumented immigrant to be admitted to the state bar. Oh my goodness, what am I reading? You know what? Here I go, this is the third one. With you, Sergio Garcia.
Attorney, first undocumented lawyer, Chicano lawyer, approved by the state bar. Thank you, Mickey, for inviting me to participate and to close this event. Joaquin Jr., like Tom, as a former member of the board of directors of MALDEF, I too have first-hand knowledge of the hours, weeks, months, years that your body had dedicated to social justice for our community. Thank you for that. Thank you, your family. As we close this celebration, let's also remember that. I'm going to stick to my script so I don't digress, because we got to get out of here too. Let's also remember that, as Mickey mentioned, we bring a spirit of gratitude. That gratitude is for whatever moment, whatever days, weeks, months, however brief that moment might have been with Joaquin, that was a gift. And we're all tremendously grateful for that gift. I had the privilege to have first crossed paths with Joaquin when I was a law student in Berkeley. I was in the La Raza Law Journal. We were putting on a symposium. Joaquin was our keynote. And I remember having a talk with him before he went up to lecture. And Joaquin and I connected right off the bat. He asked me, "So where are you from?" I said, "I'm from LA." He then asked, "What part of LA?" I said, "I'm from South Central LA." And then he said, with a big smile, "What streets?" And I said, "I'm from Florence and Normandy." And right then and there, Joaquin, as has been mentioned, making that personal connection, as gentle he is, he said, "Okay, homie, you did some good work here." He then went on to deliver one of the most brilliant lectures I had ever heard. And I have to say that I was extremely proud that day to have met such a gifted, passionate Chicano lawyer straight out of Compton. I told Joaquin that day that as a fellow Chicano from LA, a city segregated for decades by race, I told him, "I want to be supportive of your work someday." And fortunately, in my career, I was able to support some of the Joaquin's private practice litigation, including the Gomez versus Watsonville case. And as was mentioned several times here, it takes several years to file and manage voting rights litigation. It takes even longer to recover attorney's fees. So there again, Joaquin Jr., I'm grateful to you and your family for that patience to wait so many years so that Joaquin could get paid. Of course, we know that Joaquin was not just a talented and committed civil rights litigator. Teaching was also a central part of who Joaquin was. Joaquin taught and mentored students throughout his career, including at the Seattle University School of Law, where he founded and served as executive director of the law school's National Voting Rights Advocacy Initiative. There in Seattle, he actively encouraged students to pursue careers as civil rights advocates. As Dean Clark of the Seattle University School of Law noted, quote, Joaquin inspired so many of our students because his work showed in such a concrete way that law could be used as a tool for positive change. Mickey Luna reached out a couple of weeks ago and shared with me the need to continue Joaquin's dedication to students who have a keen interest and passion in social justice and human rights. She mentioned that this was an important message that Joaquin communicated to her during his last months of life, and thought it would be important to establish a memorial scholarship so that we can honor Joaquin today among his community. I thought it was a terrific idea, and I agreed to help. So the Joaquin Avila Scholarship has been created to support the higher education goals of Latino and Latina students who, like Joaquin, have demonstrated a commitment to advancing social justice and equal representation for all in this country. So before we close this celebration of Joaquin's life, let's stop for a few minutes to consider how we can help keep Joaquin's legacy alive. His legacy is a civil rights warrior and a passionate mentor and a teacher and a friend. What better way to keep Joaquin's legacy alive than to support the next generation of Latinx civil rights champions? So consider completing this pledge card that's been referenced a few times. You each receive this with your programs to support the Joaquin G. Avila Memorial Scholarship in whatever way you can. And as a gift for your support, we have a few framed and unframed photographs of Joaquin in the back, taken by photographer Stephen Ochoa. Like all of you, I will miss Joaquin dearly. We have lost a brilliant lawyer and an extraordinary man with a gentle soul. If Joaquin could share some closing thoughts here today, he might say, keep your head up, continue to work purposefully to make this a more just, a more equitable society for all, and appreciate each victory and each precious moment we have on this earth. He might also remind us with a big smile, like the smile you see in these photographs, to live in the hearts we leave behind is not to die. May Joaquin's spirit long live in our hearts. We love you, Joaquin. And now let's close the celebration the way we started, con un aplauso campesino. Que viva Joaquin Avila.
That concludes our ceremony. Have a good day. Gracias.